I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. My name's Mark and I'm 34 years old. I've been with Emily for about 5 years now, and honestly I thought we had something solid. She's a beautiful woman, confident, sharp-tongued, and she's always had a bit of a bitchy streak, but I never minded. It was part of her charm, or so I thought. We got engaged last year after a whirlwind romance, and things seemed perfect then. At least that's what I kept telling myself until the signs started piling up. Small things first: her phone ringing late at night, her brushing off my questions about where she'd been, or her suddenly being too busy to see me. I figured she was just stressed at work. She's a marketing executive, always on some tight deadline or another. But then something changed. She started giving me these weird, fleeting glances, like she was hiding something. She'd get defensive when I asked about her phone or her plans. She became more distant, more bitchy when I brought up the future or even small stuff like dinner plans. The real red flag came about 2 weeks ago. I was cleaning the apartment and decided to check her phone, something I normally wouldn't do, but I was just feeling paranoid. I saw a message thread from her boss, Richard, that made my stomach drop. It was filled with flirty messages, comments about how hot she looked at work, and plans to meet up late after hours. There were texts about how she hated being away from him and how she loved the thrill of sneaking around. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew then that Emily wasn't just cheating with my best friend, Chris. She was also sleeping with her boss, Richard. I kept reading and I found out she'd been seeing Richard for a few months now. The worst part: she told me she was working late that night Richard invited her out for drinks. I remember feeling numb, like something had shattered inside me. I thought about confronting her then, but I didn't want to believe I was right. I needed more proof, so I started gathering everything. Little clues kept piling up: missed calls, secretive texts, her changing her schedule last minute. It all pointed in one direction. She'd been lying to me from the start, hiding what she really wanted. But I didn't just want to confront her out of anger. I wanted to understand how she could do this. How she could betray me, cheat on me with my best friend, and then get pregnant with Richard's kid. Yeah, she told me she's pregnant, and I swear, that was like a punch to the chest I didn't see coming. She's been lying about everything, pretending she's still the same person I loved. But the truth is, she's been screwing around with her boss and lying to my face for months. I honestly don't know whether I feel more devastated or furious. It's like my entire world has been turned upside down in a matter of weeks. I never thought I'd be the guy to get duped so badly, but here I am, trying to piece my life back together or figure out what the hell to do next. I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see it coming. But deep down, I knew something was wrong, I just didn't want to face it. Now I'm sitting here, staring at the wreckage of what used to be my life, trying to decide if I should fight for her, walk away, or just burn everything down and start over. Either way, I know this isn't going to be easy. The confrontation was inevitable. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, not after what I found out. So I waited until Emily got home from work that evening. She looked tense, her usual sharp, bitchy smirk already in place, but I saw the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and just laid it out there. "You've been sleeping with Richard," I said calmly, but my voice felt like it was trembling. She froze for a second, her eyes narrowing like she was trying to come up with some slick excuse. Then she scoffed and rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, Mark, you're overreacting. It's not what you think. I was just what?" I cut her off. "Hiding your phone, lying about working late, and then I find out you're pregnant with his kid." "Don't give me that bullshit. I know everything, Emily. All the texts, the late nights. You've been screwing him behind my back for months." She looked furious now, her voice rising. "You don't know what you're talking about. Richard's just a boss, a friend. A friend who's been banging your brains out and getting you pregnant," I snapped. "How stupid do you think I am? I saw the messages, Emily. I saw what you wrote about how much you love the thrill. You're a liar and a cheat, and I'm done." Her eyes narrowed further. "You don't understand. I was stressed, okay? And Richard, I don't know what's going on with me. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You're just a selfish bitch," I said coldly. "You lied to me, cheated with my best friend, and now you're pregnant with his kid. How could you do this to me, to us?" She crossed her arms, trying to look superior, but I saw the cracks in her facade. Look, Mark, I didn't plan for this. I love you, I do, but I also feel something with Richard. And now I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do anymore. You're overreacting. This isn't the end of the world. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Her words felt like a slap, equal parts pathetic and infuriating. How could she call this not the end of the world? She'd ruined everything and she was still lying about it. I'd never felt so betrayed, so dumped in the pit of my stomach that I wanted to scream. Instead, I just looked at her, dead serious. You're not the only one who's freaking out, I said quietly. But I'm done. Done with the lies, the cheating, the bullshit. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Emily, and I don't think I want to. She tried to play it off, to brush past me, but I grabbed her arm. I was furious, but I kept my voice steady. This is over. I want you out of my life, and I want nothing to do with Richard or that kid. You made your choice. Now I need to figure out how to fix myself after this mess. She yanked her arm free, her face contorted with rage and tears. You're just being dramatic. You'll calm down and we'll work this out. I love you, Mark. You have to understand. Stop, I interrupted. No, Emily, you don't love me. You loved what Richard gave you: attention, excitement, a kick of danger. I was just your safety net, and now I see I was stupid to think I was enough. I'll be out of here soon. Just don't expect me to forgive you anytime soon. She stormed out of the apartment, screaming she'd call me later, but I knew that was just her trying to save face. That moment, I realized how much I'd been deluding myself. I'd ignored the signs, trusted her blindly, and now I was left with nothing but a shattered heart and a mountain of rage. That night I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion. I was heartbroken, yes, but above all I was furious. Furious at her, furious at Richard, furious at myself for not seeing it coming sooner. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, so naive. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't know if I'd ever fully recover from it. All I knew was that I couldn't stay in that apartment anymore, not with her gone and everything crumbling around me. I was at a crossroads and I had no idea which way to go. The days following that night were a blur of chaos and conflicting emotions. I packed up some of my clothes, threw out the gifts she'd given me, and tried to clear my head, but every thought kept circling back to her. Emily was pregnant, she claimed she loved Richard, and she refused to see how much she'd destroyed everything we built. I kept replaying our last conversation over and over, each word more bitter and painful than the last. I didn't want to sit around feeling sorry for myself, though. That's not who I am. So I started plotting, not in some crazy, vengeful way, more like a cold, calculated plan to get some clarity. First, I needed to know if she was truly pregnant with Richard's kid, or if she was just saying that to keep me hooked or maybe to control me. I called a friend who's a doctor and arranged for a private test. I needed facts, not guesses. While I waited for confirmation, I started digging into Richard's background. I found out he was married, big shock there, and that he had a reputation for being a smooth operator, not exactly the kind of guy you'd expect to settle down. Emily kept texting me, trying to guilt-trip me, saying she still loved me and that we could fix this if I just gave her a chance. Yeah, right. I ignored most of her messages, but part of me wondered if I should even bother. I was so angry, I couldn't see how this could ever be repaired. Every time I thought about her lying in bed with Richard, her bitchy smirk when she tried to deny everything, I felt a fresh wave of rage. But underneath all that anger was this gnawing sadness I couldn't shake. I'd lost the girl I thought I knew, the girl I'd planned a future with. The betrayal was so deep, it made me question everything: my judgment, my trust, even my own self-worth. How did I not see it? How did I miss all the signs? I kept asking myself over and over in the quiet moments when the world wasn't screaming at me. Then I got the test results. She's pregnant, definitely Richard. The realization hit me like a freight train. That's when it all changed. Again, the heartbreak, the fury, it all intensified. She was carrying another man's child, and I was supposed to just accept it. I looked at that little piece of paper and thought about how I'd been played for a fool. She'd not only cheated on me, she'd gotten pregnant by her boss, and somehow she was trying to make me feel guilty for being upset. I couldn't handle the thought of her raising that kid, knowing it wasn't mine. It felt like the final blow. My mind kept spinning, trying to find some way out of this nightmare. I knew I needed a plan, a direction. I couldn't keep living in this chaos, drowning in anger and heartbreak. I decided I'd confront her one last time, to get some answers, maybe to get closure. I wasn't sure if I'd try to save the relationship or just cut all ties. Either way, I needed to lay everything out. So I reached out to her again, telling her I wanted to talk. When she finally answered, her voice was cold, almost like she didn't care anymore. I told her I knew about the pregnancy, that I wasn't going to pretend it didn't hurt. She spat back that I was overreacting, that I was jealous and insecure, that she loved me but she also loved Richard and was tired of hiding it. She said she wanted to keep the baby, that it was her choice. I felt like I was listening to some twisted soap opera, but this was real life, and I was the one caught in the middle of it. That call was a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep going on like this, living in a mess of lies and betrayal. I needed to decide what I was going to do about her, about the baby, about everything. The anger was still there, but beneath it, I started feeling this overwhelming emptiness. I was devastated, betrayed, furious, and honestly exhausted. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't just stay silent anymore. I had to make my move, whatever that was going to be. After that last conversation, I knew I had to take a step back and really think about what I wanted. Staying angry wasn't going to fix anything, but I couldn't just let her run over me either. I decided I'd give myself some space. No more texts, no more calls, no more pretending I was okay with any of it. I needed clarity, and honestly, right then, I just wanted to breathe without feeling like I was suffocating from betrayal. I started seeing a counselor to process everything, and honestly, it helped more than I expected. Sitting there, talking about my feelings, rage, heartbreak, confusion, I realized I was still carrying a lot of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could salvage something from this mess. But at the same time, I knew I had to prepare myself for the worst. If she was pregnant with Richard's kid and she wanted to keep it, then my chances of any sort of normal life with her were pretty much zero. I had to brace for a future without her, even if it hurt like hell to admit it. Meanwhile, Emily kept trying to reach me, crying, begging, saying she wanted me to understand. I didn't want to hear her anymore. I'd given her enough chances, enough lies. I made it clear I needed space, that I wasn't going to be her emotional punching bag. The thing that stung the most was how she kept insisting she was doing everything out of love for Richard, for the baby, for herself, that she deserved happiness even if it meant breaking me apart. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a flicker of guilt or self-doubt. Maybe I'd been too obsessed with keeping the peace. Maybe I'd missed signs, but at the end of the day, I knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. One night, I got an unexpected visit from Chris, my best friend. I hadn't talked to him much since everything blew up, but he showed up at my door with a six-pack and a look of concern that bothered me more than I wanted to admit. We sat outside in the cold, sipping beers, and he finally just blurted out, "Dude, I'm sorry. I screwed up. I should have seen it, should have stopped it. I never wanted to hurt you, but I was such an idiot for not noticing what she was doing. Honestly, I feel like a piece of shit." That hit me hard. We'd been best friends for years, and I never wanted to believe he'd betray me that way. I told him I was hurt, angry, and confused. I told him I didn't know if I could forgive him or her or any of it. But I also told him that I didn't want to just crash and burn. I needed to find a way out of this mess for my sake. I didn't want to be that guy who let betrayal completely destroy him, but I also didn't want to be naive anymore. In the following days, I made some tough decisions. I contacted a lawyer, figuring out what my options were about the house, finances, and maybe even custody if it came down to that. I realized I needed to protect myself and my future. I'd been so caught up in trying to fix everything, trying to hold onto the dream we had, that I forgot I had a right to walk away if that's what it took. My heart was shattered, no doubt, but I was also angry enough to burn the whole thing to the ground if it meant finally getting some peace. Honestly, I've been grappling with a strange mix of emotions, heartbreak, rage, betrayal, but also a strange sense of relief that I finally see things clearly. Emily's actions told me she'd already made her choice. She wanted Richard, and now she was pregnant with his kid. That was the reality I had to accept. No amount of denial or hope was going to change that. I knew I had to start rebuilding my life, even if it meant losing the woman I loved and facing a future I never envisioned. It's raw, it's painful, but I think deep down, I'm starting to accept it. Over the next few weeks, everything felt like a slow descent into some kind of emotional abyss. I'd wake up every morning with a pounding head and a jumble of feelings that refused to settle. There were moments of rage, moments of sadness, and moments where I just felt numb, like I was watching my life from outside myself, unable to interfere. I kept telling myself I needed to stay strong, but honestly, I wasn't sure how much more of this I could handle. I started seeing a therapist regularly. It was the best decision I'd made in a long time. Talking about everything, her betrayal, the pain, the anger, helped me get some perspective. I realized I'd been holding on to hope, somehow still believing that she'd come around, that she'd see sense, that maybe she'd realize what she was throwing away. But deep down, I knew that was wishful thinking. She wanted Richard and she wanted her baby. I wasn't going to change that no matter how much I wanted to. At the same time, I started focusing on myself more. I hit the gym hard, threw myself into work, and tried to rebuild a little of the life I had before all this chaos. It wasn't easy. There were nights I'd lie awake, replaying everything, wondering if I was making the right choices. Some days I was just angry enough to scream. Other days I was so broken I thought I'd never put the pieces back together. But I kept going, telling myself that someday I'd come out of this stronger, whether with her or without her. One of the hardest parts was dealing with Emily's constant attempts to contact me, trying to guilt me into working things out. She'd send her tears, her pleas, her "I love you," like somehow that was going to change everything. I ignored most of it. I didn't want to hear her bullshit anymore. I realized I had to set boundaries. If I didn't, I'd never be able to heal or move forward. Then there was the day I finally got her to sit down and have a real talk. I told her I knew she loved Richard and the baby, and I told her I accepted that she'd chosen her own path. But I also made it clear I wasn't going to be part of it anymore, that I wanted her to leave me alone, to give me space to heal. She looked at me with that same bitchy, condescending smirk, trying to act like I was overreacting or being dramatic. But I didn't bite. I just told her that I deserved better than being a backup plan, and that if she ever truly cared about me, she'd respect my wishes. It was painful to say all that, but it was also freeing. I finally understood that I couldn't be the guy who tries to fix something broken beyond repair. I had to accept that she'd made her choice, and my best move now was to walk away and focus on rebuilding my own life. I realized I'd been clinging to the hope that she'd come back, that somehow I could salvage what was left, but that hope was nothing more than a dream. The reality was she was gone and she was never coming back. The only thing I could do was pick myself up and figure out what came next. Now, I've started thinking about the future in a different way. I don't know what it holds, and honestly, I'm still hurt and angry. But I also feel this strange sense of clarity, a realization that I don't need her to be happy. I don't need someone who betrays me and lies right to my face. I'm learning to trust myself again, to rebuild what I lost piece by piece. It's not easy, and I know the road ahead is long, but I also know I've survived worse. And someday, I'll look back at all this and see it as the moment I finally took back control of my life. The hardest part about all of this is the silence that's left behind. After she finally moved out and I cut off all contact, I was left with a house full of memories that suddenly felt like a prison. Every corner, every piece of furniture, every photo on the wall, reminders of a life that no longer existed. I'd lie awake at night, thinking about what I could have done differently, why I didn't see it coming, why she chose Richard over me. It's a kind of pain that lingers in the back of your mind, gnawing at your confidence and trust. But slowly I started to rebuild. Not just my house, but my self-esteem. I got rid of the things that tied me to her, the gifts, the pictures, the shared memories, so I could create some space to breathe. I threw myself into work, into my hobbies, and into the friendships I'd neglected. I realized that I'd always been strong, even when I didn't feel like it. That this betrayal, no matter how deep, didn't define me. I was still here, still standing, and I was going to be okay. Looking back, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I was capable of surviving heartbreak that felt like it would crush me. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough, especially when the person you love is someone else. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. And I learned that no matter how much it hurts, you can come out of it stronger. For anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this: give yourself permission to feel everything. Don't rush to heal or pretend you're okay when you're not. Take the time to grieve, to rage, to cry. But also don't forget to look forward. Trust me, heartache passes. It's a long road, but eventually the pain becomes part of your past, not your present. You find new reasons to smile, new hopes to chase. And someday, you realize that the betrayal, as painful as it was, set you free from something that was never meant to last. I still get moments where I think about her, about what could have been, but those moments are fewer and farther between. I've learned that life isn't about waiting for someone else to fix you or make you happy. It's about finding your own strength, your own peace. And I believe now that, eventually, I'll be able to love again. Better, wiser, and more prepared for whatever comes next. Because the truth is, no matter how much you get hurt, you always have the power to rebuild yourself, your life, and your trust in the possibility of better days.